Hi, this is Joe Bolen, and today we're going to look at a module in VisualBasic.net. Up to this point, we have worked with what's called a class. In particular, we've used the particular class called a form class when we created our graphical user interface. Now we're going to take a look at creating a module, which is a specific kind of container in our program, and we're going to take a look at when and where we would use a module in our program. For your reference, I have on the screen the link at Microsoft Development Network where you can find more information about the module statement. But we're going to take a quick summary of some of the things that are there at that site. First of all, why use a module? Well, a module is a place where we can have one container for globally accessed variables. So instead of having at the class level where I might declare a public variable, I can move that variable into a module, and therefore if I have a number of classes and they need to have available to them a globally accessible variable, we can put that into the module and we can easily find it and see what its values and attributes are. Another reason we might want to have a module is that we might have methods and functions that are not unique to a particular class, and therefore we can isolate those methods and functions in the module, and it becomes then globally available, and it becomes what's called a shared method or function. Now, a module, unlike a class, is not instantiated. We do not need to declare that particular module that we're using like we would a class. A module is available to us from the beginning of the program and available to the end of the program. A module's access level defaults to friend, although many times we see it as public as well. And it's easier just to declare things within it as public where we want to be able to see throughout our whole program the different methods, functions, and variables. And so basically we're looking at everything inside there is available throughout our assembly. Now, all members of a module are implicitly shared, and that means we do not have to make an instance of it. They're available to us, and they're there at all times throughout our program's run. Now, module variables are effectively global variables. Now, there's a little caveat I'd like to say. There can be and will be situations where you have private variables declared within your module that aren't seen outside the module. But most of the time we're looking at those variables in the module as being available to the rest of our assembly on that. Therefore, we call them globally accessible variables. Now, a module cannot be inherited. At the same time, it cannot inherit from another module. Unlike a class where we can have a master class and inherit from it and have a child class from a class within it. So a module cannot inherit a class or be inherited. Also, a module cannot implement an interface. So there are some unique differences a module has from a class, and we're going to take a look at that in the program that I've written that we're going to complete during this lesson. I have on a screen in Visual Studio a form that I've created, and I have two labels here that I'm going to be outputting to so we can see the particular variables when I've declared it as a friend or as a public, and we'll see how I can reference and get to those variables, and I'll do that during the load event. I'll code that in just a minute. Also, we're going to have two text boxes that we're going to have for input, and then when we hit the sum button, we're going to take those values, those numbers, and go to a shared function in a method, I should say a shared method in a module that we'll see how that is done. So let's take a look at coding this. And one areas that we want to begin with is looking at these particular events here, and I'm going to start off by double clicking on the form to create the form load event, and then we'll look at referencing these variables. Okay, I have now the form load event, which is the default for the form itself. And what I'm going to want to do is to have show up the two variables that I have declared, the friend value label text property, and I'm going to set it equal to something. Right now I'm going to make this just a commented line, and then I'm also going to have the other property that I had created, the public value label, and take its text property, and I'm going to assign it as something as well. Now I could very quickly just assign it to a string literal, but I'd like to take advantage of seeing how we see variables in a module. So I'm going to come now over to my area of my project, right click on it, and I'm going to do an add new add here a new module on that, and this module I'm going to just call simply the global methods module. So say global methods, and we'll see that global methods has been created, and it does not have public in front of it. It is seen as a friend class right now. And let's take a look at declaring three different variables on that. First of all, I'm going to declare private, and I'm going to call this one global private var as string equal, and I'm going to say private. Then I'm going to create another one that I'm going to declare as friend, also as string, and I'm going to set its value to friend. And the last one I'm going to create is a public one, okay. We have now three variables that we declared in our module. I called it global private variable, global friend variable, and global public variable. And each of these has associated with it the access modifier private, friend, and public. So I'm going to save that and then go back to my main form code and see how I can reference those. So I'm going to real quickly uncomment these now and see if I can reference those. Well, first of all, I should be able to reference it as global method, global methods, which is the name of our class, and then you can see right away that I only have available to me global friend variable var and global public var. I do not have the private one that we declared in our global methods, and that's obvious. A private one stays private within its particular class or method. So the global private var variable is not available, but the global friend var and global public var are available to my other class. So let's go back here, and so I could take advantage of getting access to it, and since I want to see the friend one, I could use global friend var. And I can also use the global methods module and then use the public var. And there are two, and let's watch this run at this point in time and see how it works. Okay, we have it running at this point in time, and you see that I brought in the string values that I declared in the module, friend and public, and they came into our form. Now, I would like to show you a little bit something unique about a module in this case. Let's go back to our program. And while I declared the particular variable by qualifying the method's name, I can take this away because it is seen as a friend or public to the whole thing. I do not need to qualify it. There, you can see when I put my cursor over the variable, it declares this one as a friend variable, and the other one sees it as global, but I do not need to qualify it because everything in the class is available throughout the program and assembly. So once again, if I run this, these are available and should produce the same results, which they do, friend and public. Okay, let's take a look at our particular situation here where we're taking two numbers and finding the sum of those when we hit the sum button. So let's go back to our program. I'm going to go back into the design, and I'll take the default button click event by double clicking on the button sum that I've created, and it'll create my particular event procedure for the submit button click. And we're going to put in there some different functions to see how they work. First of all, what I'd like to do is have produce for my output the sum, but I need to first get the values that we have from our screen in, so I'm going to declare two variables. So I'm going to do a dim, I'm going to say first value as double, and this will allow me to have numbers with decimal points, and I'm going to do a quick convert to double and bring in the text box, my first text box, and bring in its text property for that. Now there's no error checking here, and I do have to have a number for this to work correctly. This is just a demo program. Also, I'm going to do the same thing for the second value. Once again, also having it as a double data type. I'm going to assign it, after I convert it, the second text box to text property. Okay, so as we come in, we have numbers in our two text boxes, which are seen as strings. We're going to convert them from strings into our double data type and put it in the first value and second value variables that we've declared. Now, we want then to have our sum label that we have, sum value label text. It's going to get the result of that, and we're going to use a function. Now, I could very quickly just type in first value plus second value, and that would work and be quite acceptable. But I'd like to show you how we could take advantage of using a function. I must have misspelled something wrong there. Well, okay, so let's take advantage of using a module, and let's go back to our module, and I'm going to, in the module, have a method, and in that method I'm going to create a method called function, and I'm not going to qualify it with an access modifier, and I'm just going to call it plain add function, and I'm going to have by val bring in value 1, as double, and the second one is by val as well, bringing copy in, value 2 as double, and I'm going to return back a double data type. And what I'm going to do is simply do a return of value 1 plus value 2 as my function. Okay, so we have just plain add function in our module. I'm going to save that. Now let me go back to the main form VB and take advantage of that, and I'm going to use plain add function. I'm going to pass into it first value and second value. Okay. I've got a little error here. Oh, I need a toString because we're going to output it to our text property, which needs a string. So I've got passing in the two values as double, returning back a double, and then converting it to string to put it into the text property of some value. So let's watch this and watch it work. Okay, I'm going to put in 15 and 35 and hit the sum button, and we get 50, and we see the function is working fine. But let's take a look at qualifying the function and see some differences. Let's go back into our global module. Now here I did not have any access modifier, but it was available. Let's now code some other ones in and see if there are any differences. Let's code the same thing, and I'm going to take this function and write it in a couple of different ways. Okay, we're going to change the names of these. The first one I'm going to put in front of it is private, making the access modifier private, and I'm going to call it private add function. The next one I'm going to do is I'm going to make this one a friend access modifier, call it friend add function. And the last one I'll make is public function and call it public add function. So we now have 4 different functions, one with no access modifier to it. We just called it plain add function. The second one with a private access modifier in front of it. We called it the private add function. And then we had the friend add function and the public add function. Let me save that. Now let me go back and see if these are available to my other class. At this point, let's take this and see if I can change that. And we know plain functions available. Let's see if private functions available. I'm going to click out of it, and you'll see that I have a squiggly line. And if I click on it, we're going to see the private add function is not declared or may be inaccessible due to its protection level. Well, we have it defined, but it's private in our module, so we can't reference that. Let's take a look at the friend one. And that one is available and will work. Also, the public one should also work. And it works as well. And we'll just test it out and we'll see that works. And I'll put in 15 and 35 again, hit the sum button, and we get 50. So we see that the function is working fine, and we take advantage of it. And then the good thing about this is this particular class, the main form class, does not need to worry about the calculations. That is put in another container. In this case, we put it in the global methods module as a container to hold our calculations. And therefore, all we're worrying about basically in our program is the input and output variables for our process. We're allowing our module to actually do the work in the background when we call that particular function. And as we look at our functions, we'll note that we can access the public function, a friend function, and just a plain unqualified function in our other class, but we can't access a private function, as well as we cannot access a private variable in other parts of our code, but we can access friend and public. So we can put public variables into our module, and we can most likely put public functions into our module for our program to use. Now, the important thing to remember as we're looking at our code is we want to separate the graphical user interface part of our code from our business logic area. And we'll look more at that in detail as we get further into different types of programs. But one of the first ways we can separate that business logic from our graphical user interface layer is by creating a module and putting our methods and functions that we need in the module and not in our class of the graphical user interface. Also, we can have global variables that are needed throughout our whole program by putting it in a module where we can easily find it. And the good thing is I do not need to qualify and declare the particular module because that module is available throughout my whole assembly on that, so I can just call directly those variables and methods without fully qualifying the container where they reside. So we see this in this particular very simple demo, and in the next video we're going to actually take an older program that we have worked with, the simple calculator, and we're going to extract out of it the functions and methods in there, pull them into a module, and we'll see that our code becomes very simple when we look at the graphical user interface layer. And we've also made one container to hold our methods and functions for our calculations. So stay tuned, watch the second video as well, and go back to the beginning of the video and take a look at the definition of a module and where we would use it. So until then, keep your hands dirty in the code and take care.